If you make bows, then you know that every bow you make spawns the ideas for about 3 or 4 more bows after that one. We are always in search of the next best way to either produce or design our bows so that we meet some specific objective in the end. I spent so much time experimenting with tapers and materials and construction processes and glues, etc., that I was trying to make more bows than I had time to reasonably devote to the process. This prompted me to look for new ways to perform the tapering piece of the process without having to use the labor behind rasps, files, draw knives, and etc. After kicking around a few ideas that proved to be disastrous, I made a drum sander at the cost of about $250. I have a video on this particular tool, and I'll place it in the card up above. While this was a useful tool that saved me a lot of energy and time, it still proved, in the end, to be rather laborious and time-consuming, not to mention incredibly dusty. I've always been interested in using my table saw to taper my limbs, but could never quite figure out how to get it to work on a bow. It's not like tapering jigs are something new for a table saw application, but in the instance of a bow, it's hard to affix the bow to the jig or get a stop in use that's going to prevent the bow from moving and still be out of the way of the blade during use. In my early years, I would tune into PBS on Saturdays to watch a little show called The New Yankee Workshop. Norm Abrams would produce some of the most amazing pieces out of that workshop and taught his audience his shop techniques, how to use particular tools, and make jigs to get precision results. He was my hero.
I'll show you that next, right here on the New Yankee Workshop.
The New Yankee Workshop features the craftsmanship of Norm Abrams.
I put a lot of those learnings to use in my own shop, and that's where I came across the rule of thumb that if you're making the same cut more than 4 times, you make a jig. So my garage is full of tools and jigs for me to make any number of projects, be it furniture, cabinets, or my bows. Today we're going to be putting a couple upgrades on my most recent tapering jig that I highlighted in a video that's in the card above this screen. This particular jig has come full circle for me in the process of tapering the limbs of my bows, which is a very laborious process. As per my usual tendencies, I decided to do my own flooring job in my home. In the process of learning how to install it, I found somebody online that used hot glue as a temporary means of affixing boards in place. It was then that a light bulb went off in my head. The first iteration of this particular jig was born. It was itself an experiment, and some of the things that I've learned from this particular jig is that hot glue does not work well against raw wood, which is what necessitates the use of blue tape in order to prevent the glue from seeping into the grain of either the bow or the jig. But it'll get kind of laborious and wasteful to keep applying blue tape with every bow that I make, when I could just affix a piece of laminate to the face of the jig so that it's easy to clean at the end of at the conclusion of use. This way, I only have to use tape on the bow itself. The next upgrade would be to add an adjustment screw for setting the degree of taper on this jig. This way the jig is in its complete form and ready to use at all times. All it requires is a little adjustment, some hot glue, and a bow blank. So at a minimal cost of materials, an additional investment for an upgraded hot glue gun, and a few things lying around the shop, I'm now able to produce precision tapers in seconds with very minimal setup. If you're like me, then you recognize the value of getting about 80% of the work done with very minimal effort. understanding that a true, well-made bow lies well beyond this part of the process, and is therefore, in my mind, still a custom-built, handmade work of art. I hope you guys found this piece of information to be valuable and perhaps useful in your own shop. I expect that I'll be using it for a long time to come. Hopefully, this can help accelerate your building adventure. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I hope to catch up with you again next week.